I gave that man everything. My time, my tears, my trust, my whole entire heart. And you know what he gave me back? Lies dressed up so pretty I mistook them for love. But the moment I stopped crying and started thinking, that's when everything changed. Stay with me, because this story, it does not end the way he planned. I want you to understand something before I tell you the rest. I was not a naive woman. I was not desperate. I was not someone who had never been loved before. I was a grown woman who had her own apartment, her own career, her own savings account, and her own sense of self. I had built something real for myself, brick by brick, year by year. So when I tell you that this man dismantled almost all of it, I need you to understand that it can happen to anyone. It happened to me. I met him at a mutual friend's dinner party on a Thursday evening in early spring, the kind of night where everything feels easy and warm and full of possibility. He was funny, not the kind of funny that tries too hard, but the kind that sneaks up on you and makes you laugh before you even realize you're smiling. He asked me questions and actually listened to the answers. He looked at me like I was worth looking at. And after years of pouring energy into work and building and achieving, being truly seen by someone felt like water after a long drought. We started talking every single day after that night. Long phone calls that stretched past midnight, texts that made me smile before I even finished reading them. He was attentive and thoughtful and said all the right things at all the right moments. He told me I was different. He told me he had never met a woman who made him feel the way I did. And I believed him because at the time, I had no reason not to. Within 4 months, we were inseparable. Within 8 months, he had moved into my apartment. Looking back, I can see how fast that was, but in the moment, it felt natural. It felt like the next right step. It felt like love. Living with someone shows you things that dating never will, and in the beginning, what I saw still felt good. He cooked on Sunday mornings. He remembered small things, the way I liked my coffee, the songs that made me emotional, the stories from my childhood I had only told him once. He was present in a way that made me feel like I had finally chosen correctly. But I started giving things up slowly, so slowly that I barely noticed it happening. I stopped going to my Thursday evening pottery class because he said he felt lonely when I wasn't home. I started turning down after-work events with my colleagues because he would get quiet and distant if I came home late. My best friend at the time, a woman I had known since college, started calling me less because I kept canceling our plans. I told myself I was just prioritizing my relationship. I told myself that was what love required. The first time I noticed something truly wrong was over money. I had mentioned a work trip opportunity, a conference in another city that could have opened serious doors for my career. It was a 3-day trip, fully covered by my company. He sat across from me at the dinner table and said very calmly that he didn't think it was a good idea, that 3 days was a long time, that he wasn't sure he could hold things together here without me. I remember looking at him and feeling something cold pass through me for just a second, but he reached across the table, held my hand, and smiled, and that cold feeling melted. I told my manager I couldn't make the trip. I did not go to that conference, and I have thought about that decision more times than I can count. About 14 months into us living together, something in him shifted. It wasn't dramatic at first. It was quiet. He started staying up later than me. His phone, which he used to leave face up on the counter without a second thought, was now always flipped over or tucked in his pocket. He started having conversations in the other room, short ones, ones that stopped when I walked in. I asked him once, gently, if everything was okay. He told me I was being paranoid. He said it with such certainty, such calm, that I actually apologized to him. I said sorry for asking. I said sorry for making him feel like I didn't trust him, and he accepted my apology like I had actually done something wrong. That became a pattern. Every time I expressed concern, every time my gut was screaming at me, he would find a way to make me feel like the problem was my perception and not his behavior. He would say things like, "You always do this," or "I can't believe you would think that about me," or "I guess I just can't make you happy no matter what I do." And I would spend the next several hours trying to convince him that he did make me happy, that I was sorry, that I trusted him completely. I was apologizing for being hurt, and I kept doing it every single time. My sister called me one Sunday afternoon, and I broke down on the phone with her without even planning to. The words just started falling out of me. How tired I felt, how confused I was all the time, how I never seemed to say the right thing anymore. She got very quiet, and then she said, "That doesn't sound like a relationship. That sounds like a trap." I told her she didn't understand. I told her it was complicated. I hung up and cried for an hour and then went and made dinner like nothing had happened. It was a Tuesday, ordinary in every way. He had left his laptop open on the kitchen counter while he went to take a shower. I wasn't snooping, I want to be clear about that. I was simply walking past to get a glass of water. But the screen caught my eye because it was an email, and my name was in it. Not a message to me, a message about me, with my account numbers in it, with my full name and my credit information written out in a way that made my stomach drop straight through the floor. I stood there in my kitchen, bare feet on the cold tile, and I read every word. It took me a few minutes to fully understand what I was looking at. He had opened 2 lines of credit in connection with my information. He had been moving money in a way that benefited him while my accounts absorbed the risk. There was a name I didn't recognize in the email chain, a woman, and the tone between them was not professional. I put the glass of water down very carefully on the counter. I walked to the bathroom door. I could hear the shower still running. I walked back to the laptop and I took photos of every single thing on that screen with my phone. Every email, every number, every name. Then I walked to our bedroom, sat down on the edge of the bed, and I fell apart. It was not the kind of crying that releases you. It was the kind that breaks something. The kind where you can't breathe properly and your whole body shakes and you keep thinking, this cannot be real, this cannot be real, this cannot be real. But it was real. Every single word of it was real. He came out of the shower and found me sitting there. He took one look at my face and he knew. I didn't even have to say anything. I just held up my phone. And the look that crossed his face, that flash of something before the excuses started, that was the moment I truly understood who I had been living with. The next few days are hard to describe because they didn't feel like real time. They felt like moving through water. Everything was slow and heavy and slightly blurred at the edges. I called in sick to work. I stopped eating properly. I would wake up in the middle of the night and just stare at the ceiling with this hollow feeling in my chest that I didn't have words for. He tried everything. He cried, and they were real tears, or at least they looked real. He said he was sorry more times than I could count. He said he had been in a bad financial situation that spiraled out of control, and he panicked, and he never meant for it to go this far. He said the woman in the emails was nobody. He said I was the only person that mattered to him. He got down on his knees in our living room and begged me not to throw away what we had built together. And the most terrifying part of all of it is that I almost believed him. I sat there and I looked at this man crying on the floor in front of me, and there was a part of me, a part I am not proud of, that wanted to hold him, that wanted to say, okay, that wanted to choose the familiar pain over the terrifying unknown of starting over. Love does something to your logic. It rewires things. It makes you capable of forgiving what you absolutely should not forgive, because the alternative feels like losing a piece of yourself you don't know how to recover. My mother flew in without me even asking her to. My sister must have called her. She showed up at my door with a suitcase and a look on her face that said she was not leaving until she knew I was going to be okay. She didn't say, "I told you so." She didn't say anything for a while. She just sat with me, and that quiet, steady presence was the thing that kept me from making the worst decision of my life. It was about 2 weeks after the discovery. Early morning, the kind of gray, quiet morning where the whole world feels still. I woke up before my alarm and just lay there, and for the first time in weeks, I wasn't crying, I wasn't shaking, I was just still. I got up and made myself a cup of tea and sat by the window, and on the small bookshelf nearby, I noticed an old journal that had belonged to my grandmother, one my mother had brought with her in the suitcase. I hadn't opened it in years. I pulled it down and flipped through the pages slowly, and near the middle of the journal, in my grandmother's careful handwriting, I found a single sentence. It said, "A woman who knows her value does not negotiate with someone who refuses to see it." I read it 3 times, and something in me that had been bent for a very long time quietly straightened. I didn't make any noise, I didn't call anyone, I didn't confront him or make any dramatic declarations. I just sat there with my tea and my grandmother's words, and I made a decision so clear and so calm that it almost scared me. I was done grieving this relationship. It was time to protect myself. What happened next I did quietly, deliberately, without any anger clouding my judgment, because I had already cried out all the anger from me, and what was left was something sharper, something focused. I called a lawyer that same week, a woman who specialized in financial fraud and civil cases. I sat in her office and laid out everything I had: the photos from his laptop, my bank statements, the credit reports I had already pulled. She looked through everything carefully and then looked up at me and said, "You have a real case here." Those words steadied something in me I didn't know needed steadying. I opened a new bank account at a completely different institution. I began moving my direct deposit. I pulled my credit report and started the process of disputing the accounts that had been opened without my full knowledge and consent. I documented everything, every step, with the guidance of my lawyer. I reached out to a former manager I had stayed in contact with, someone who had always believed in my work. I told her I was looking for a new opportunity and asked if she knew of anything. Within 10 days, she had connected me with a position that was actually a step above where I currently was. I interviewed. I got it. I found a new apartment on a quiet street with big windows and hardwood floors. I signed the lease by myself, with my own name, my own income, my own fresh start. When I signed that paper, I felt something move through me that I can only describe as reclaiming, like I was gathering back pieces of myself that had been scattered and finally holding them all again. He had no idea any of this was happening. He thought I was still deciding. He thought his tears and his apologies were still working on me, and I let him think that, because the work I was doing required peace, and confrontation would have only created noise. On a Friday morning, 3 weeks after I signed my new lease, I moved out while he was at work. I took what was mine, and I left what was his, and I did not leave a note. My mother and my sister helped me. We were done in under 3 hours. That same afternoon, my lawyer filed the formal complaint. The documentation went to the appropriate financial authorities. His employer received a notification through proper legal channels regarding the fraudulent activity tied to my accounts. The credit agencies received the dispute paperwork with full supporting evidence. The woman whose name I had seen in those emails, she had actually reached out to me a few weeks prior. It turned out he had done something similar to her, not identical, but close enough. We spoke once, carefully, and we shared information that strengthened both of our cases. I felt no anger toward her. She had been deceived just as I had. We were two women cleaning up the mess left by the same careless, dishonest man. He called me many times. I had already blocked his number before the first call could come through. He emailed once. My lawyer handled it. He showed up at my old building, and the new tenant told me later that a man had come knocking and seemed confused when a stranger opened the door. I felt nothing dramatic about any of it. No satisfaction that burned hot, no guilt, no second-guessing, just a quiet, steady sense of order being restored. The right people knew who he was now. The truth had found the places it needed to go, and I was no longer in the wreckage. 6 months later, I was sitting in my new apartment on a Sunday morning. The windows were open. There was music playing softly. I had a candle burning and a book in my lap, and a cup of coffee going cold on the table beside me because I kept forgetting to drink it. And I realized, in that ordinary, unremarkable moment, that I was happy. Not performing happiness, not convincing myself to be grateful, actually, genuinely, quietly happy. My career was growing, my finances were healing, I had started therapy, something I wish I had done years earlier, and I was learning things about myself that were uncomfortable and true and necessary. I had reconnected with my best friend, and we were closer than we had been in years. My relationship with my sister deepened in ways I hadn't expected. My mother called every Sunday morning now, and those calls were the highlight of my week. The weight I had been carrying, the constant low-grade anxiety of living in a relationship that required me to shrink myself, was gone, and the absence of it felt so significant that sometimes I would just stop in the middle of an ordinary moment and breathe and feel something I could only call relief. Peace does not arrive loudly. It does not announce itself or ask for recognition. You just wake up one day and notice that the heaviness is no longer there, and you realize that you did not lose love. You lost a cage that had been dressed up to look like love. I am not telling you this story so that you will be angry on my behalf. I am long past needing that. I am telling you because I know that somewhere out there, a woman is sitting in a situation that feels too familiar right now. She is rationalizing. She is apologizing for things that are not her fault. She is choosing the comfort of what she knows over the terrifying possibility of something better. I want her to hear this clearly. Your instincts are not paranoia. Your feelings are not overreactions. When something inside you keeps going quiet and uneasy, that is not anxiety. That is wisdom trying to protect you. Listen to it. I also want you to know that healing is not linear and rebuilding is not instant. There were days, even after I left, when I missed him. Not him specifically, but the version of him I had believed in, the one I had fallen in love with at that dinner party in early spring. Grief does not only come from death. It comes from the loss of a future you had planned and a person you thought you knew. That grief is real. Let yourself feel it, and then let yourself move. You are not weak for having loved deeply. That capacity for love is one of the most powerful things about you. The goal is not to harden yourself or close yourself off from love forever. The goal is to love yourself first with the same fullness and devotion you offer other people. When you do that, truly do that, you will stop accepting less than you deserve, because the gap between what you deserve and what you are being given will become impossible to ignore. I don't carry hatred for him. I genuinely don't.
What he did was wrong, and he is living with the consequences of his choices, but I am not spending one more moment of my one precious life holding on to bitterness about it. I took back what was mine, I moved forward, I am whole. If this story reached something inside you today, if it made you feel seen or stronger or just a little less alone in whatever you are carrying, please share it with someone who needs to hear it. You never know whose life a story like this might quietly change. Like this video and drop a comment below telling me what part of this spoke to you most. I read every single one. And if you are not subscribed yet, do that right now, because this channel is built for women who are ready to choose themselves, and we are just getting started. You are not too much. You are not too emotional. You are not hard to love. You were simply loving someone who did not know how to receive it. That is his loss, not your flaw. Take care of yourself, protect your peace, and remember, your love is worth something. Make sure you are giving it to someone who knows that. Until next time.